Hello students. In our early lecture we have studied one of the form of poetry and that is lyric poetry. Now the next form in this lyric poetry that we have already studied among the different forms of poetry is sonnet. We have seen the different forms of lyric poetry are dramatic lyrics, sonnet, elegiac poetry, hymns. So all these types of lyrical forms of poetry explains us the musical quality of the poetry. At the same time, the and simple at the same time emotional themes, imaginary themes are portrayed with delicacy of a subject matter in a very joyful and playful mood in the lyric poetry. And in the same way, there are so many sonnets written by sonneteers who explore this form of poetry for the expression of the love, expression of their intricate emotional states and imaginative literary so called themes. So, there are various types of themes that are joyful and that are not dealing with serious issue are portrayed in the sonnet forms. We have seen a lyric poem consisting of a single stanza, as we have seen the 14 line iambic pentameter lines are linked with the rhyme scheme, and that is what we have the sonnets. In the Italian form, Petrarch was the dominant poet who was born in the 14th century. That the poetry falls in the two categories, namely the octave and sestet. Octave means the 8 lines in the single stanza, and the sestet stands for 6 lines in the next stanza. Rhyming of the Petrarchan sonnet is ABB, AABBA. So 8 lines are rhyming in such a way, and 6 lines are rhyming CDC, CDC, or CDE, CDE. Petrarch's sonnets were first imitated in England in the 16th century by Sir Thomas Watt and the Earl of Surrey. Both are credited to have brought the sonnet as a lyric form into English poetry and introduced to the fellow English poets. The Petrarchan form was later used for great variety of subjects, and it is again become one of the dominant form of poetry writing, and so many poets thereafter tried their hand towards writing the Petrarchan sonnet. The poets include just the romantic poet William Wordsworth. We have seen Milton, John Milton, who is a belated Renaissance poet, who also tried his hand, Christina Rossetti, D.G. Rossetti, and other fellow poets over the centuries who who tried to imitate the Petrarchan type of sonnets, for it's technically speaking easier in English. With the octave part precedes, explores the subject, and sestet is a type of explanation reaction to the argument. So, structurally speaking, this Petrarchan sonnet proved as one of the perfect example for the poets to argue their viewpoints and themes. As we have seen in English, there were experiments that were made by the English poets and include the Earl of Surrey and other experimenters in English poetry. And these includes the poet's poet Edmund Spenser, who derived his own rhyming pattern of the sonnet form, and at the same time the great dramatist William Shakespeare also imitated and experimented this sonnet form and derived his own sonnet. So Shakespearean sonnet is the greatest of its practitioners and have written 154 sonnets in the sonnet sequences. This sonnet falls into three quatrains, means four lines of in three stanzas, ending with a couplet, means ending with two lines. And the rhyme scheme of Shakespearean sonnet is A B A B, C D C D, E F E F G G. This notable variant is also furthermore experimented and derived by Edmund Spenser, and he brought the different variety by rhyming, and he used continuing rhyming. Shakespeare is typically different one, but Edmund Spenser, who continued the rhyming pattern of a second line or the fourth line to rhyme in the fifth and as we see fifth, seventh line. See A B A B. So second and fourth lines rhyming with fifth and seventh line. In the same way, see sixth line rhymes with the ninth line and 11th line. So on, it's a continuing rhyming scheme that is used by Edmund Spenser. A B A B, B C B C, C D C D. So there is the continuation of rhyming. So structurally speaking, each and every subsequent stanza is rhyming with the earlier stanza or lines, ending with a couplet that stands for EE. John Donne, who shifted the hitherto the primary subject as well as the sexual love, okay, as well as he used holy sonnets in respect to the religious sonnets in the 17th century. Milton, who also in the later part of century tried to expand the range of the sonnets to other matters and for serious concern. The neoclassic period, the sonnet has remained a popular form of the sonneteers to the present day, and it includes among the distinguished practitioners in 19th century William Wordsworth, Keats, Elizabeth Barrett Browning, Christina Rossetti, D.J. Rossetti. In the 20th century, Edwin Arlington Robinson, Edna St. Vincent Millay, W. P. Yeats, Robert Frost, Dylan Thomas, W. Jordan also wrote some of the beautiful sonnets. And so, the stanza has a kind of a lyrical development, and yet it's so short, but it stands for the proper communication of the themes. Petrarchan sonnet, as we have seen, the rhyming pattern of the Petrarchan sonnet was a favorable one, It's a kind of a statement of a problem as I have just discussed. At the same time, there is an incident in the octave and a resolution in the sestet. So, structurally speaking, Petrarch's sonnet proved a very good example for the poetic argument. But often, such a sonnet presents a kind of a repetition with variation of a statement in the three quatrains, and the final couplet in the English sonnet usually imposes a kind of an epigrammatic term at the end. Drayton, who is a Elizabethan poet, from "Since there is no help come, let us kiss and part." The lover brusquely declares the last quatrain, then reiterates the second. He is glad that the affair is clearly ended. So, the kind of a swagger that the lover has made is explained in the quatrain and the couplet. Now, at the last gasp of love's latest breath, when his pulse failing, passion speechless lies, when faith is kneeling by his bed of death, and innocence is closing up his eyes, now thou wouldst, when all have gone, all have given him over, from death to life thou mightest him yet recover. Following the Petrarch's early example, a number of Elizabethan authors arranged their poems in the sonnet sequences, and as we have seen, Philip Sidney, Edmund Spenser, and William Shakespeare, who contributed to the sonnet sequences. Means continuously they are writing sonnets after sonnets. So, Shakespeare ordered his sonnets in a sequence, and that forms the sonnet sequence. Philip Sidney, who in Astrophela and Stella also wrote, Spenser's Amoretti is an example of the sonnet sequences. Various subjects like William Wordsworth's The River Dawn, D.G. Rossetti's The House of Life, Elizabeth Barrett Browning's The Sonnet from the Portuguese, American poet William Ellery Leonard's Two Lives, Dylan Thomas' Alterwise by Owl Light, is a sequence of 10 sonnets which are definitely abstruse meditations, difficult meditations of the poets on life, complexity of life. See, George Meredith, who tried her hand in modern love, which concerns bitterly with unhappy marriages, is also a kind of a sonnet sequence that there come after. So, it is a 14-line poem, but some of the experimenters who contributed, just like sonnet, they have developed into 2 more lines, and their poetry becomes the poetry of 16 lines. In the early history of the sonnet and development, John Milton also contributed a great deal through his sonnets. So, let us go through the example by William Shakespeare, and we are going to study the sonnet from Shakespearean sonnet variety in our next lecture. So, we will go through one after another. So, till then, bye.